Okay, so we're going to be going over, or we're going to be starting like a general pin escapes system today. For those of us that are new to Jiu-Jitsu, this is really, really useful. For those of us that have been training for a while, I reviewed the material and I still thought it's really, really good. So unfortunately, it's going to be one of those things where I have to talk a bit in the beginning again. So basically, the system runs down as you identify what a pin is. So as in the Danaher system, a pin is basically wedges around your body that prevent you from moving that are reinforced by body weight, okay? So again, a pin is wedges around your body reinforced by body weight. The system that you're gonna use to defeat this is getting inside of those wedges and off balancing him and moving his body weight, right? So if wedges are the problem and they're backed up by body weight, to solve this problem, you got to get inside the wedges and get the body weight off, and then the pin is defeated. Okay? So there's kind of two types of pin escapes. There's reversal escapes, so stuff like the hip or the upa, where you're on the bottom mount and you bump up to the top. And then there's escapes to guard, where you're just getting back into guard. Probably like 99% of the escapes, and in terms of efficacy, is going to be the latter, escaping back to guard. The chances of you, rolling somebody from bottom side up to the top side, it happens, and it does happen, or like rolling from the bottom mount to the top of the guard, but don't kind of focus your time on those because your return on investment is going to be really low. It's mostly going to be getting back to the guard. So he has a 5-step process, not exactly in a linear order of how you're going to get out of pin escapes, right? So the first step is you're going to limit vulnerability. So don't get finished, and limit discomfort. So stop getting smashed. Once that happens, you're going to either try to move his weight or get an initial inside space, usually with an elbow, not always, but usually with an elbow. So that's one of the steps that it depends. Sometimes you can get inside space with an elbow. Sometimes you have to move him to get inside space with an elbow. But regardless of which step comes first, eventually you're gonna have to make space and start getting inside. Then you're gonna get majority inside. So that means like more of your parts are inside of his inside space than his. And then lastly, you're gonna retain the guard, right? So 5 steps seems pretty simple. Maybe it doesn't seem simple, but I'll preface it for kind of what's going on. I'll borrow Corey for this. So the first step usually, actually, I'll borrow Gilbert for this. So if Gilbert's on the bottom, or Gilbert will be on the top. So a lot of us think that pinning is like body weight, right? Like if you say, what does it mean pin somebody? It means hold somebody down with their weight. It actually doesn't mean anything at all. So yeah, actually, if Gilbert's on the bottom, yeah, just on your back, Gil. So he's a pretty strong cat. But if you think pinning is just using your body weight, if I just use my body weight, and I don't use anything, so put me back in the guard, Gilbert. Right. Okay, your legs back in between us. Pretty simple to do, right? So maybe not the best example because I'm not super heavy, but it's not that hard. Or Gil, you switch top and bottom, right? So if I'm on the bottom, so try to pin me down and don't let me get into the guard, but just using your chest weight, right? So that over there. So go ahead. So just pin behind your back, right? So put your hands behind your back, right? Not very hard, right? And he's a heavy dude. So the difference is if Gilbert's on the bottom again, so that's like using body weight. If you use the concept of using wedges now with no body weight, which is what we do in our top control drill. So Gilbert, try to get your guard back. Right, so there's no body weight, really, but because I'm using wedges to prevent him to move, he's having a really hard time getting his guard back, right? So a good successful pin is wedges around your body, right? Which limit your movement. So to defeat that, you have to get inside the wedges. Because just weight alone, you could have a huge guy on you, but if there's no wedges, your body movement on the bottom is largely uninhibited. No problem at all. Right, thanks, Gil. So if you think about it that way, if we run through the 5 steps really quick, Corey. Take like a top side, maybe coming from this side. So, like we've all been here where we're getting cross-faced aggressively. He has the inside space here. He has the inside space here. He has the inside space here. So this sucks, right? So if I'm like this, this is a pin. I can't really do too much any which way, and this sucks. So the first step is to limit the vulnerability in the system. So my major vulnerabilities here is like he can arm lock me here, right? This is up here. He can Kimura me, arm lock me here. And there's also the risk of vulnerability of having him advance the position so he could climb a mount, right? So first step's pretty simple. You wanna limit vulnerability, usually by sucking your arms in, right? So if you suck this in here, right? No more vulnerability. If you can manage to get this here, right? No more vulnerability to that. If you bring your leg up, if you have the dexterity, this is pretty effective. If you don't, if you put your knee back down here, not at the top of the knee, just a little lower, it's gonna prevent him from driving right into your lever. So if, like this is very different from this, yeah? So from here, I've limited the vulnerability. The next thing is to limit discomfort. So if he was cross-facing me aggressively here, it's hard to solve a problem. It's harder to solve a problem if somebody keeps poking you in the eyes, right? So that's what this is. It doesn't really break posture too much, but it makes it really uncomfortable. So if you can, you know, stuff like this, just to get rid of it, right? So the second step is you have to make space. The movements we're gonna use to make space are usually either shrimps or bridges or maybe a back heist, right? So again, if he's nice, tight here, right? I need to make space so I can get more inside space, right? So now if you look at inside space, I'm on the inside here, I'm on the inside on this hip, and I'm on the inside here. So he still has this, he still has this. But once I start, again, getting majority inside space, so I'm inside here and here, he only really is inside this hip and even barely, I can start to put it back in guard, right? And that's like your final step. So if you go back to a pin position like this, right, you have to do an initial assessment, kind of like what's being wedged here, right? He has a wedge on my head, he has a wedge on my hip, he has a wedge on my shoulder, and he has kind of a wedge here and this hip as well, right? So you have to start getting inside of these wedges. He has complete inside space. I have nothing right now. So again, we reduce vulnerability, get on the inside. Sometimes it can be 2 to 1, right? Because this is like, I'm already back a little bit inside versus having this. So I'm inside and I've reduced the vulnerability. This is good, but he still has majority of the inside space here. So he's still winning. If I move out, right, with a little bit of a hip escape and I get inside here, again, now I've gotten the inside space on his hips. He still has inside space on this arm. He's still inside space on this hip. But again, if I can start pushing in, like we've probably all done this before when we're escaping, but to have it explicitly shown is really, really beneficial, I find. Does all this make sense? Does it, the gears should start turning for those of us that have trained it a little bit, like, oh, like this system is really good, I found, because it tells you like, this is exactly what's going on. This is how people are pinning you. It's not their weight. That's why guys like Owen and Joe, you guys can't really pin me because I'm small. So I'm getting inside these wedges and I'm just prying them open, right? With movements like if I shrimp into one of your wedges when I'm on the inside, it's gonna open because it's a hinge, right? It's a strong motion. But it should get you guys, especially those who have trained before, like, oh, this is what it is. And for that top control drill, it really emphasizes like, oh, if he's about to defeat my wedge, I need to put a different wedge in, right? So let's face this way for a sec so we can catch it on camera. The thing is, when he's wedging up top, like if he controls the top here, right? So I can't really do too much up here, but I can do stuff like this, right? So the configuration changes if he takes this hand and puts it down there. So he's wedging this hip now, but he's not wedging this hip. So if I wanted to do the same thing where I'm like, oh, not gonna go, right? So you have to be able to, that's why the general system is that. It's like heuristically, you just gotta identify what's going on. So I can't get inside here because his arm down, but I could get inside here, right? So now I've defeated this and this, and then maybe I'm gonna get inside here. So again, to be good at escapes, you have to be like specifics are important, but this is really beneficial. Even if you like, you'll kind of identify what's going on. Like, where are the wedges? How can I get inside of them? And then once I get inside of them, it's honestly really just a hip escape or a shrimp, or it's going to be a bridge to move him.